Like we are live. It is 6:01. Caucus is in session. Agenda. I'd like to add line item number 5, Village Parks. And line item 6, Halloween. And they were both on behalf of Mayor Puckett. Anything additional? All righty, seeing nothing further, it's 6:01, and that is officially the shortest caucus in council history. Are we okay with just getting started immediately? Or is there anything additional, Mr. Dmitrovich?
Did you say you were adding those to the caucus list, Parks, Halloween?
Yes, there's just for a brief statement.
So are you gonna talk about
Yeah, during mayor's report.
that? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought
Yeah,
maybe-
no, nothing. Yep. We good? All right, are we okay with just getting started immediately, everyone? There we go. We're muted. All right, let's try it again. I would like to call to order McDonald Village Council meeting for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. Roll.
Mr. Harvey,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Mr. Fisher,
Present.
Mr. DeZee,
Here.
Mr. Schmidt,
Present.
Mr. Joins.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the
flag
flag of the United
United
States of America
America,
and
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice
justice
for all.
There we go. Sorry about that. At this time, if we could have a moment of silence for the troops serving both here and abroad and all of our first responders, and the Lord's Prayer if you so choose. Our Father,
Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy
hallowed
name.
be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Approval of council minutes from August 19th, 2020.
Move to approve as mailed.
Move to approve by Councilman Fisher. Discussion?
Yeah, just briefly, as Amy pointed out, there was a correction before the printing of the minutes. I misspoke under the Planning Commission. 452 was going to move from RA to CA, not the other way around. Just a misstatement.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any further discussion? Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZee,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Moving on to adoption of agenda.
Move to adopt as is.
Moved by Councilman Fisher to adopt the agenda as is. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. DeZee,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Moving on to mayor's report. Obviously, Mayor Puckett is not with us this evening. As I mentioned last evening, his son Kyle did sustain a minor injury at junior high football practice. He is currently awaiting an X-ray at an emergency room as we speak. So let's hope for some good news. In addition, he did want me to mention a couple of things. He did have a meeting with the other mayors in the area. Fell, there it is. With regard to Halloween, they're scheduled to have another meeting on September 11th, at which time he is hoping that we will have some news for our residents with regard to what the health department's decisions and the local mayors in the area have decided with regard to Halloween. In addition, another mention on his behalf with regard to the village parks. He wanted to remind our residents that the village parks are open. Certain facilities have been closed. Social distancing needs to be maintained and is required at all times. And the reasoning behind some of the closures has been due to some vandalism that has taken place as recently as within the last 24 hours. So the mayor would like to encourage any resident with any information with regard to anyone who was present within the park from sundown last evening until sunup last night to please call the McDonald Police Department or the village building as soon as possible. That's all he had for the mayor's report. In addition, just the mayor's court report. The Niles municipal court fines were $674.90. Parking tickets totaled $175. Police reports, $5 for a total to the village of $854.90. Moving on to reports from village officials. Administrator, Mr. Dimitrovich.
You did.
Employees are 3 employees on removing trees. We often do this in August. And to date, we have removed 18 front lawn trees that were dead, and we only remove them if they're 100% dead. And so far, we've removed 18. We have 12 more to remove completely, and then we have about 15 to trim out. So they're actively working on this. It'll probably, it was August, and it'll probably be a better September as well. So after the trimming is concluded, we will begin to do stump grinding. So we still have more to go. I know some residents are called, but we are looking to extend that into September now and keep that program going. There's a lot to do. So no other report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitrovich. Our police chief, Chief Lee, is currently on vacation. His report has been submitted to safety. Moving on to our fire chief, Chief Stitt. Sit with us this evening.
No.
All righty. I believe his report has also been submitted to safety. And moving on to our solicitor, Mr. Ross.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Pro Tem, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Committee reports. Myself, President Pro Tem. We met this evening for one of the shortest caucuses that I've ever been a part of at 6:01. We closed at 6:01. We discussed the agenda. Fiscal officer's report, council minutes, legislation, village parks, and Halloween, which were mentioned during the mayor's report. And we closed at 6:01. Moving on to parks and buildings, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. We met at 6:33 last night for the full committee, and some of the things we went over, Shauna brought up there's some interest in having some fall ball down at the park, and we're waiting to get more communication and stuff like that. It sounded pretty exciting, but there's people are showing interest, so we'll be getting more information on some of the activities that may be taking place down there. Correct, Sean? Is that?
Yeah, I did send a message out to Joe Capizzello. He and Doug Flair will be meeting sometime this week. And again, it's not going to be any type of, team setup or anything like that. It sounds like it's more going to be of a skills type situation, kind of a little mini camp, just to get some kids some playtime. this year.
Thank you for the update on that. That's exciting. We also talked about activities that are held in the park. We went over a bunch of that activities. We talked about some of the park equipment. Tom also gave us a report on the equipment that we got approved from the Trumbull, County Health Department. We went to great lengths to make sure that everything we wanted to do for our Woodland Park summer activities were going to be safe, and we really spent a lot of time, Tom did, communicating with them, giving them all the list of stuff that we wanted to do, and then they're giving us the responses of what they felt, which we could or could not do, and we got through it. A lot of thinking out of the boxes. People know that we went to on our swings every other swing, teeter-totters every other teeter-totter, so to get our social distancing. Same thing with the baby swing. So a lot of thought into getting everything that we thought we could get through as safe. And as Tom mentioned last night, he thinks we were probably one of the only or very few communities that actually got approval on all their stuff through the Trumbull County Health Department before they opened up those activities, to make sure that we're getting all the right information, and we wanted to do things properly and get safety for our residents. So Tom, again, thank you. And again, the Woodland Park Summer Program closed on the 14th. Thanks to Hannah and everybody there again for the great year. As everybody knows, we're pretty much still in the COVID-19 situation as far as what's coming next, and we, like everybody else, are watching and waiting, for reports from the governor and locally, and it hasn't gone away, so we have to be sensitive to that. So we're always looking at that. The community room, I think we're still looking at some information to get back on that. Is that, Tom, we're still looking to get some more information on where we're at with the community room? Is that correct?
There's going to be an announcement and a posting of the regulations for opening the room. The communities are allowed to open, but regulations being kicked around regarding that. So it's still information that has to. We're not ready, and unlikely that we would open on the 21st.
Okay, well, that's exciting news. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, getting that moving forward would be great to have that back open again when it's safe. And as we do, we have to be patient with a lot of stuff that's going on. Patience is the key. I know the seniors are excited to get back in there, as we are to have them back in there. So we'll wait and see how that transpires. That's pretty much it. Anybody else on the committee have anything else that they want to bring up? If not, we closed at 6:50. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Moving on to our safety chair, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, thank you, President Pro Tem. Safety did meet at 6:23 yesterday. We haven't had anything new to report since the last meeting, but I will take an opportunity just to say that I was misquoted in the Tribune by Bob Copeland after the last meeting. Maybe he'll correct that, maybe he won't. That's all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. We close that meeting at 6:24.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Moving on to our Finance and Capital Improvements Chair, myself, Mr. Lewis. We did meet last evening for Finance at 6:02 via Zoom. We closed at 6:22. We had a lengthy discussion regarding several topics, one of which is the COVID-19 CARES Act funds. We did review the lists that have been currently submitted by department heads, and we have learned that we could potentially be getting an additional lump sum of funds that would need to be spent by October the 15th. So that being said, as finance, we've reached out to our department heads to ask them to please come up with some needs that they believe can be utilized for those COVID funds. And we are looking at potentially having an additional department head meeting sometime next week around September the 10th, and possibly another finance committee meeting around the same time. that information will be to follow and will be publicized should we have a public meeting on that. Some of the ideas that came up would be, for example, the purchase of hand sanitizing stations for Mayor's Court and for all village facilities so that we could have them available to our residents and our employees. Potentially looking at the Marks radio repeater, which would possibly be needed in the event of an emergency. And one great idea that came about by our office manager, Mrs. Cunningham, was the potential of having a foyer remodel where we would make it somewhat COVID safe, where it's a separate room and there's bulletproof glass and there is no public contact. So we're looking into all of those potential opportunities, hopefully to have some decisions by the second meeting in September, because these funds need to be spent in October or we lose them. So we would hate to see any funds that we potentially have that are basically free monies go to the waste. The other thing we discussed was the 2021 budget. Right now, we are looking at a potential hit of about $250,000, so about $250,000 in revenue loss going into 2021 that we would have to cut back. This is due obviously to several factors, one of which has been the pandemic. COVID-19 has not helped anyone from the employment front. Folks have been out of work, both within our village, within our county, within our state. But that being said, additionally, you know, when your biggest source of revenue is income tax and your largest employer in General Motors closed its doors, we were kind of prepping for a loss, but COVID kind of just amplified that. So we are asking all of our department heads to look at potential ways to cut costs in 2021 without cutting any services to our residents. And in addition, one thing we didn't make mention of within our finance committee meeting was that we would not look to, you know, anything in the form of our people or our wages. So we're hoping that we can have some type of decision to have a temporary budget in place by the end of the month. I believe that was the length of our committee meeting. Again, we close at 6:22, and we will keep the public informed if we do decide to have another committee meeting prior to the second September meeting. That's all that I had. Moving on to our service chair, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We opened at 6:25. We did close at 6:33. Just a brief discussion of what we talked about last night. The main one was the paving project and what Mr. Dimitrovich is doing to potentially extend this grant into next year. With what Mr. Lewis just discussed and the hit that we're going to potentially take on the budget, we're being very selective with our spending. So just to give some numbers, the project itself bid out at $144,471.63. The grant would then would be $49,120.35, which would cost the village $95,351.28. Now, in good times and when we're not dealing with COVID and these potential losses, this would be a great opportunity to get some things done and to move forward with this paving project. We did have appropriated $126,291.85. So we would have around a little over $31,000 left over. But again, we need to be smart with our spending. And if we can extend this potentially next year and hopefully things get better quick, I wouldn't hold your breath on that, but hopefully that it will, and we can move forward with this sometime next year. Mr. Dimitrovich did send me an email with the contacts that he has had with Linda Bailiff. She's at OPWC, the state director there. And I believe he is going to be emailing Don of why we need this extension rather than canceling this. So thank you, Mr. Dimitrovich, for your work on that. We did talk about the baseball camp. Mr. Harvey already discussed that. So looking forward to hear from Mr. Capizzello and Mr. Flair on their details. Again, we won't move forward with anything until council sees their plan on how we're going to keep everything safe down there, but the village would be happy to go down there and get fields ready for them in case they do come up with a good plan and we can move forward with some type of camp for the kids. Last, I just wanted to mention, I did receive this from Mr. Dimitrovich today as well, that Jennifer Jones from Gotta Go Green, who supplied us with the green recycling bins down where recycling happens. Originally, they sent us two new ones that, again, we were paying. They are a little bit smaller, but they do hold a lot of volume there. But they did notice that we were getting filled up pretty quickly due to the amount of recycling that our community is doing, which is great. So now they are going to pick it up twice a week, which is going to be Tuesday and Friday every week. So that's great. So everybody continue to do what you're doing as far as the recycling goes. Continue to flatten your cardboard, be respectful when you go down there, and keep it nice and clean down there. So we're very fortunate for what they're doing for us. And like I said, we did close at 6:33. If anybody has any questions or other comments.
Seeing no questions. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Our Planning Commission Chair, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, thank you, President Pro Tem. We're going to set a public hearing for Wednesday, October the 7th at 5:45, which precedes the council meeting. And that public hearing will pertain to the property at 452 Pennsylvania to hear any stance from the public on a zoning change. That's all I had. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Community Chest, Mr. DeZ.
Thank you, Pro Tem, but I have no report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. DeZ. Moving on to remarks from persons or groups present. We were submitted no correspondence. So moving on to old business, seeing none, no new business. Tonight's legislation, for the first time in a long time, there is none. And fiscal officer's report, which I failed to mention during caucus.
Thank you. Nothing but the bills. So I, Lori Canada, fiscal officer for the Village of McDonald, Ohio, do hereby declare that the bills are true and correct in the amount of $107,967.20, and the money is in the bank to pay them.
I'll move we accept the fiscal officer's report and pay all the bills. And that's moved by myself, Councilman Lewis. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher.
Aye.
Mr. DeZ,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Seeing nothing under miscellaneous. Move to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn, please.
Moved by Mr. Harvey. Discussion. Roll.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. DeZ,
Aye.
Mr. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Joins.
Aye.
Alrighty, meeting closed.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night.